I didn't lose money in the market because I was stupid. I lost money because I was undisciplined. And that truth took me far longer to accept than any losing trade ever did. Let me say this slowly, because most traders miss it completely. The market does not reward intelligence. It rewards control. I want you to pause right here and ask yourself something honestly. Have you ever known exactly what to do and still done the wrong thing? If yes, then this story is about you. I speak to you now not as a teacher standing above you, but as a trader who has stood exactly where you are, staring at charts late at night, convincing myself that one more indicator would give me certainty, believing that if I just understood the market a little better, the profits would finally come consistently. But that belief, that intelligence alone creates success, is one of the most dangerous myths in trading. Nicolas Darvas learned this lesson the hard way, and so did I. Darvas was not born a trader. He was a professional dancer, a man whose life depended on rhythm, repetition, and control. And that background mattered more than any finance degree ever could. Because when Darvas entered the stock market, he brought something most traders never develop: discipline under pressure. You see, the market is not an IQ test. It is an emotional battlefield. Every candle challenges your patience. Every breakout tests your ego. Every pullback whispers temptation. And here's the brutal paradox most traders never resolve. The smarter you are, the easier it is to rationalize bad behavior. Intelligent traders overthink. They predict. They argue with price. They justify early entries, late exits, revenge trades. Discipline doesn't argue. Discipline obeys rules, even when they feel uncomfortable. Darvas understood something that most traders today still refuse to accept. You do not need to be smarter than the market. You need to be more controlled than yourself. In this documentary, I want to walk you through that realization slowly, deliberately, and honestly. Because discipline is not glamorous. It doesn't feel powerful in the moment. It feels boring, restrictive, almost painful. And yet, it is the edge. This is not a story about indicators. This is not a story about predicting tops and bottoms. This is a story about why traders with average intelligence but iron discipline quietly outperform brilliant minds who cannot control their impulses. As I narrate this, imagine yourself sitting alone in front of the screen. The market is open. Price is moving fast. Your heart rate rises. Your plan is clear, but your emotions are louder. That moment, that internal tug of war, that is where traders are made or destroyed. Darvas didn't win because he knew more. He won because he did less, and only when his rules allowed it. And that is the uncomfortable truth we are about to unpack together. Before we go any further, I want you to engage with this honestly. Do you believe discipline or intelligence matters more in trading, and why? Comment your thoughts below. I read everyone. In the next section, we'll confront the inner conflict every trader faces, the battle between knowing what to do and actually doing it, and why the market punishes hesitation just as harshly as recklessness. The most dangerous moment in trading is not when you don't know what to do. It is when you know exactly what to do and feel an overwhelming urge to do something else. That is the paradox. Let me take you inside the trader's mind for a moment. Not the idealized version, but the real one. The one that sits in front of the screen while price moves without permission. The one that feels tension in the chest as the candle grows too fast. The one that whispers, if I don't act now, I'll miss it. This is where intelligence and discipline collide. You see the setup. You understand the structure. You know your rules. But the market doesn't wait for comfort. And suddenly, logic gets drowned out by urgency. Darvas understood this conflict early. He noticed that the market had a cruel sense of irony. It punished both hesitation and impulsiveness, but rewarded controlled patience. Most traders, however, live trapped between those extremes. Here's the paradox that destroys consistency when price moves slowly. Traders get bored and force trades. When price moves quickly, traders panic and chase. In both cases, intelligence is present. Knowledge is present. Charts are understood. But control is missing. And control, not knowledge, is what separates survival from self-sabotage. I've watched intelligent traders talk themselves into trades they knew they shouldn't take. They explain it beautifully. They use perfect language. They sound convincing even to themselves. That's the danger of intelligence without discipline. It doesn't stop bad behavior. It justifies it. Darvas faced the same temptation. Early in his journey, he followed tips. He listened to stories. He acted on opinions. And every time he did, he felt powerful, briefly, until the market reminded him that confidence without structure is just gambling in a suit. So he began observing something critical. Whenever he lost money, it wasn't because the market fooled him. It was because he violated his own rules. That realization is painful because it removes excuses. It's comforting to believe the market is unpredictable. It's uncomfortable to admit we are. This is where the inner conflict becomes unbearable for many traders. Because once you realize the problem is internal, you can't fix it with a new indicator. You can't download discipline. You can't outsource emotional control. You have to build it, trade by trade. Darvas saw that the market constantly tempts you to act early, to anticipate, to prove you're smart. But anticipation is ego's favorite disguise. It feels intelligent, it sounds strategic, and it destroys accounts quietly. The disciplined trader does something radical. He waits for confirmation, even if it feels late. He acts only when conditions align, even if it feels boring. He exits without negotiation, even if it hurts. That restraint feels weak to the undisciplined mind, but it is strength in its purest form. Here's the brutal truth most traders never confront. You don't need more confidence. You need more restraint. And restraint feels like loss in the moment. Loss of opportunity. Loss of excitement. Loss of ego. But Darvas realized something profound. Every time he restrained himself, he was actually protecting his capital and his psychology. He was training himself to trust rules over impulses. This is not easy. The market will test you daily. It will create near-perfect setups that fail by inches. It will reward reckless traders occasionally just to confuse you. It will punish discipline temporarily just to tempt you into breaking it. And that's the trap. Because discipline is not proven in winning moments. It's proven in moments when breaking rules seems justified. Let me ask you something personal now. Have you ever broken your rules and convinced yourself it was a smart exception? Comment yes or no below and be honest with yourself. In the next section, we'll expose the psychological trap at the core of this conflict, the one that makes traders believe they reign in control while slowly losing it. The market doesn't defeat traders with randomness. It defeats them by giving them just enough success to believe they're in control. That illusion is the trap. Let me tell you something most traders will never admit out loud. The worst trades are not the ones that fail. The worst trades are the ones that work even though they broke your rules. Because those trades teach the wrong lesson. They whisper, see, you knew better. You didn't need discipline. You're smarter than the system. And slowly, quietly, discipline erodes. Darvas recognized this pattern before most. He noticed that every major drawdown in his account was preceded by a period of small wins taken outside his rules. Those wins inflated confidence. That confidence loosened structure. And once structure broke, losses accelerated. This is the psychological trap at the heart of trading, ego disguised as intuition. You start believing you can feel the market. You trust your experience more than your rules. You override confirmations because this one looks different. But markets don't reward feeling. They reward consistency. Darvas realized something devastatingly simple. The market doesn't care who you are. It doesn't know your experience. It doesn't respect your intelligence. Price only respects behavior. And behavior without rules is chaos. Here's how the trap tightens. First, you learn a strategy. Then, you follow it strictly and see mixed results. Then, you take a few impulsive trades and they win. And suddenly, your brain rewrites the narrative. You weren't lucky. You were right. That's when the danger begins. Because now, every rule becomes optional. Every setup becomes negotiable. Stops widen. Entries creep earlier. Exits get delayed. And all of it feels justified, even sophisticated. Darvas called this the confidence phase, and he feared it more than fear itself. Why? Because fear makes traders hesitate. Confidence makes traders reckless. Fear can be corrected with patience. Overconfidence requires loss to be humbled. Darvas learned to distrust his feelings. He treated emotions not as guidance, but as warnings. If he felt excitement, he stepped back. If he felt urgency, he waited. If he felt fear, he reduced size, but never broke rules. That is discipline in its truest form. Most traders do the opposite. They trade to relieve emotion. They enter to escape boredom. They exit to escape fear. They revenge trade to escape frustration. And the market happily takes their money, not because they're ignorant, but because they're emotionally reactive. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Intelligence amplifies emotional damage when discipline is weak. A less intelligent trader might hesitate. A smart trader can rationalize disaster. Darvas saw that success required something counterintuitive. You must become suspicious of your own certainty. The moment you feel sure, you are most vulnerable. The moment you feel clever, you are closest to breaking rules. That's why Darvas relied on mechanical structure, his boxes, his confirmations, his predefined exits, not because he lacked intelligence, but because he didn't trust it under pressure. And neither should you, because the market will always tempt you with narratives, stories, reasons, news, opinions, predictions. But discipline asks only one question: did price confirm? If not, you wait. I want you to reflect deeply and answer this honestly. Have rule-breaking trades ever boosted your confidence before hurting your account later? Comment below. Your awareness might help another trader recognize the same trap. In the next section, we'll step directly into Darvas's mindset, how he reframed discipline not as restriction, but as freedom. Discipline is not the absence of freedom, it is the price you pay to earn it. That is how Nicolas Darvas saw the market. When Darvas finally understood why he was losing, he didn't search for a smarter strategy. He searched for a stronger framework, one that could protect him from himself. And that shift changed everything. Darvas stopped asking, "What do I think the market will do next?" He started asking, "What has the market already proven?" That single reframing destroyed prediction and replaced it with obedience. From Darvas's perspective, the market was not something to be conquered intellectually. It was something to be respected structurally. Price movement was not noise to interpret, but evidence to respond to. This is where most modern traders go wrong. They treat the market like a puzzle to solve, rather than a process to follow. Darvas treated trading like choreography. Every move had a cue, and nothing happened early. His famous boxes were not just technical structures. They were psychological fences. Each box told him where he was allowed to act, and more importantly, where he was forbidden to interfere. Darvas believed that freedom in trading came from knowing exactly when you were not allowed to trade. That idea sounds simple. It is not, because the undisciplined trader feels trapped by rules. The disciplined trader feels protected by them. Darvas understood that rules eliminate emotional negotiation. There was no debate, no maybe, no just this once. Either price broke out of the box with volume, or nothing happened. And that clarity created calm. Think about how exhausting trading becomes when every candle feels like a decision, when every small move demands attention, when every pullback feels like a threat. Darvas removed that burden. He delegated decision-making to structure. He also understood something deeply uncomfortable. Your best ideas often cost you the most money. So he refused to trade ideas. He traded confirmations. Darvas didn't care about news. He didn't care about opinions. He didn't care how bullish or bearish something felt. He cared only about whether price behaved the way his rules demanded. This made him look slow, late, almost foolish, until the trend proved him right. Darvas's mindset was built on delayed gratification. He accepted missing early moves in exchange for catching sustained ones. He accepted boredom in exchange for consistency. He accepted looking wrong in the short term to be right over time. And that is where discipline becomes power. Because once you remove prediction, ego collapses. Once ego collapses, discipline strengthens. Once discipline strengthens, execution becomes effortless. Darvas didn't feel disciplined because he forced himself to behave. He felt disciplined because there was nothing left to argue with. Rules ended arguments. This is the perspective modern traders desperately need. Trading is not about being right often. It's about avoiding self-destructs when you're wrong. Darvas built a system that assumed he would be wrong many times and made sure those moments were survivable. That humility is the foundation of control. Let me ask you this. Do your trading rules protect you, or do they feel like suggestions you can ignore? Comment your answer below and reflect on it honestly in the next section. I'll take you into a real-world story moment, a situation where Darvas' discipline was tested when breaking the rules. Would have felt brilliant? There is a moment in every trader's journey where discipline feels stupid and breaking the rules feels brilliant. Darvas lived through that moment and survived it because he did nothing. Let me take you back to one of the most psychologically dangerous situations Darvas faced. Not during a crash, not during panic, but during opportunity. A stock he was watching had been moving steadily higher. Clean structure, strong volume. It had built a tight Darvas box, weeks of controlled accumulation. Everything looked promising. Other traders were already talking about it. The excitement was growing. Then something happened. Price surged inside the box, not above it, not confirmed, just enough to trigger temptation. This is the moment where most traders act. This is where intelligence whispers, you know, what's coming. Darvas felt it too. He later admitted that he wanted to buy. He understood the business. The trend made sense. The breakout felt inevitable. And every logical argument pointed toward early entry. But his rules were cold, unemotional, brutal. No breakout, no trade. So he waited, and that waiting felt uncomfortable, almost embarrassing. Watching price move without him, watching others brag about early entries, watching paper profits grow while he sat on his hands. This is where discipline becomes lonely. Then the market did what it always does. Price reversed sharply. The obvious breakout failed. Late buyers panicked. Early entries got trapped. Stops were hit. Confidence evaporated. And Darvas, he lost nothing. Days later, after the noise cleared, price rebuilt structure. Volume returned. The box tightened again. And this time, price broke out cleanly, powerfully, with confirmation. Darvas entered without emotion. No excitement. No urgency. Just obedience. That trade became one of his biggest winners, not because he was smart enough to predict the move, but because he was disciplined enough to wait for proof. This story captures everything most traders misunderstand. Discipline doesn't make you faster. It makes you right at the right time. Intelligence wants early rewards. Discipline demands evidence. Darvas learned that the market constantly sets traps that reward impatience temporarily and punishes it permanently. That false breakout wasn't random. It was a psychological test, and most failed it. Because waiting feels passive. Waiting feels weak. Waiting feels like missing out. But Darvas redefined waiting as an active decision. By not trading, he was trading. By doing nothing, he was protecting capital. By resisting temptation, he was compounding confidence. This is what modern traders struggle with most. They believe activity equals progress, that more trades mean more opportunity, that constant engagement is necessary to succeed. Darvas proved the opposite. He didn't trade often, but when he did, he traded with alignment. This story also exposes a painful truth. Most losses come from trying to be early, not from being wrong. Darvas didn't need to catch the first move. He needed to catch the real move, and that patience turned discipline into profit. Be honest with yourself and answer this. How many times have you entered early because it felt obvious? Comment below. Awareness is the first step toward control. In the next section, we'll descend into the emotional low point, the moment where most traders abandon discipline entirely, and why Darvas didn't. Every trader eventually reaches a breaking point, not where the market defeats them, but where they betray themselves. That moment almost ended Darvas's journey. There was a period when Darvas was doing everything right, at least on the surface. He had rules. He had structure. He had proof that discipline worked. And yet, the market tested him relentlessly. Trades stopped working. Breakouts failed. Stops were hit one after another. Not violently, but consistently. This is the most dangerous phase in trading. Not chaos, not panic, but slow erosion. Because when discipline stops producing immediate rewards, doubt creeps in. And doubt is far more corrosive than fear. Darvas began questioning the very rules that had protected him. Not emotionally, but intellectually. And that made it worse. He thought, maybe the market has changed. Maybe I need to adapt. Maybe I'm being too rigid. These thoughts sound reasonable, intelligent, even responsible. But beneath them was a deeper emotion, impatience disguised as logic. This is the emotional low point where most traders collapse. Not because they're reckless, but because they're tired. Tired of waiting. Tired of small losses. Tired of doing the right thing without immediate validation. Darvas felt that fatigue. And here's the critical moment. He almost loosened his rules. Not dramatically, just slightly. A little earlier entry, a little more tolerance on stops, a little more flexibility. That's how discipline dies, not in rebellion, but in compromise. But something stopped him. Darvas recognized a pattern from his past. Every time he modified his rules during a drawdown, the losses accelerated. The system didn't fail. He did. This realization hit hard. He understood that discipline is not proven when it feels rewarding. It is proven when it feels pointless. The emotional low point is where discipline becomes faith, not blind faith, but earned trust in process over outcome. Darvas made a decision that changed his trajectory. He would accept being wrong frequently, but never undisciplined. That decision removed pressure. If losses were part of the system, they were no longer personal. They were expenses, not verdicts. Most traders internalize losses as failure. Darvas externalized them as statistics. That psychological shift is enormous, because once you stop needing the market to validate you emotionally, you stop interfering with it. Darvas returned to full discipline, not because he felt confident, but because he felt humble. And humility is the turning point. The market didn't change immediately, but Darvas did. His execution became cleaner. His stress dropped. His patience returned. And slowly, almost quietly, winners began to appear again. Not because he fixed the market, but because he stopped fighting himself. This is an important moment for reflection. Have you ever loosened your rules during a losing streak just to make it work? Comment below. You're not alone, and naming it matters. In the next section, we'll uncover Darvas' true breakthrough, the rule that transformed discipline from effort into identity. The breakthrough wasn't a new strategy. It was a non-negotiable rule, and it changed everything. After years of emotional swings, near misses, and hard-earned insight, Darvas arrived at a conclusion that most traders resist with everything they have. Rules must be stronger than feelings every single time. Not most of the time. Not when it feels convenient. Not when the setup looks too good to miss. Every time. Darvas' true breakthrough came when he stopped treating discipline as effort and started treating it as identity. He no longer asked, "Should I follow my rules?" He asked, "What does a disciplined trader do here?" That subtle shift removes choice. And where there is no choice, there's no emotional struggle. His most powerful rule was deceptively simple. If price does not confirm, I do nothing. No exceptions. This rule did not promise excitement. It promised survival. Darvas accepted that missing trades was not failure. Breaking rules was. He accepted that boredom was part of the job. He accepted that the market did not owe him opportunity, and that entitlement was poison. This is where discipline stops being mechanical and becomes philosophical. Because Darvas understood something profound. Consistency comes from removing decision-making under stress. Every additional decision is an opportunity for emotion to interfere. So he eliminated them. Entry was defined. Exit was defined. Risk was defined. If conditions weren't met, the market didn't exist to him. This is why Darvas appeared unemotional in his trades. He wasn't suppressing emotion. He had simply removed its influence. Most traders try to control emotion. Darvas designed around it. That's the breakthrough most modern traders miss. You cannot outwill fear, greed, or impatience, but you can make them irrelevant. Darvas also adopted another rule that strengthened this mindset. I only care about protecting capital, not being right. Once that became his priority, everything aligned. Stops were honored without hesitation. Losses were accepted without drama. Profits were allowed to run without interference. This rule transformed losses from emotional events into operational ones. And here's the hardest part for traders to accept. Darvas did not feel confident when he succeeded. He felt calm. Calm is the signature of discipline. If your trading feels exciting, something is wrong. If it feels dramatic, something is broken. If it feels urgent, rules are missing. Darvas' discipline was boring, and that boredom was the edge. Let me ask you this directly. Do you have at least one rule in your trading that is truly non-negotiable? Comment yes or no below, and reflect on what that says about your process. In the next section, we'll translate Darvas' breakthrough into the reality of modern markets, fast charts, social media noise, and constant temptation. The market moves faster today, but human weakness hasn't changed at all. You might be thinking, Darvas traded in a different era. Slower markets, less noise. That's true. And yet, discipline matters more now than it ever did. Modern traders are not fighting the market. They're fighting distraction. Charts update in real time. Opinions flood your screen every second. Social media turns trading into performance. Every move is narrated, analyzed, and hyped. In this environment, intelligence becomes overload. More information doesn't create clarity. It creates temptation. Darvas' philosophy fits modern trading precisely because it removes noise. His rules were designed to block interference, and that is exactly what today's traders need. Let's be honest. Most traders today don't lack strategies. They lack restraint. They jump time frames. They adjust rules mid-trade. They enter because someone tweeted confidence. Darvas would call this chaos. His approach demands something radical in the modern world. Silence. Silence from opinions. Silence from predictions. Silence from your own impulses. Modern traders believe they must react quickly to survive. Darvas proved that reacting selectively is what creates longevity. His box theory still applies, not just technically, but psychologically. Define structure, wait for confirmation, let price prove itself. And here's the key modern adaptation: reduce exposure to influence. Darvas traded alone. You trade surrounded by noise. So discipline today requires boundaries beyond charts, fewer indicators, fewer time frames, fewer opinions, fewer trades, more rules, more patience, more execution quality. Another Darvas principle modern traders must embrace is detachment from outcome. With instant P and L updates, traders emotionally track every tick. Darvas didn't. He placed trades, defined risk, and walked away, often literally. That detachment preserved objectivity. Modern traders must learn the same skill, not by ignoring results, but by predefining them. If you know your maximum loss before entering, there is nothing to fear. If you know your exit rules, there is nothing to debate. Darvas would thrive today not because he was adaptable, but because he was selective. He wouldn't chase news. He wouldn't scalp noise. He wouldn't trade to feel busy. He would wait. And waiting, in today's hyperreactive environment, is rebellion. Think about this honestly. What is the biggest modern distraction that breaks your discipline? News, social media, or overanalysis? Comment below. Naming it weakens its control. In the next section, I'll walk you through a step-by-step way to apply Darvas-style discipline in your own trading. Practically, not theoretically. Discipline is not a personality trait. It is a system you build, step by step. If Darvas were starting today, he wouldn't ask, "How can I trade more?" He would ask, "How can I remove myself from my own mistakes?" That's the foundation of practical discipline. Let me break this down into something you can actually implement, not as theory, but as daily behavior. Step 1. Define where you are not allowed to trade. Most traders define entries. Disciplined traders define forbidden zones. Darvas used boxes for this reason. Price inside the box was noise. No matter how convincing it looked, he was not allowed to act. For you, this means no trades in chop, no trades without structure, no trades without confirmation. If price hasn't earned your attention, you don't give it. This single step eliminates overtrading instantly. Step 2. Create one non-negotiable entry condition, not 5. Non-optional. 1. For Darvas, it was confirmation through breakout with volume. For you, it might be a higher time frame break and hold a defined range expansion on a trend continuation with structure. Whatever it is, write it down. If it's not there, the trade does not exist. Step 3. Predefine risk before you look at reward. Darvas never asked, "How much can I make?" before asking, "How much can I lose?" Your risk should be fixed, small, emotionless. If you feel fear when placing a stop, your size is too big. Discipline starts with survivability. Step 4. Automate exits to remove emotion. Darvas placed stops and respected them without debate. You must do the same. No moving stops. No, just a little more room. No emotional bargaining. Once placed, the trade outcome is no longer yours to control. That freedom is powerful. Step 5. Trade less, but track everything. Darvas didn't improve by trading more. He improved by reviewing behavior. Journal. Rule follow trades. Rule broken trades. Emotional state at entry. Over time, patterns will reveal themselves, and they will humble you. Step 6. Measure discipline, not profit. This is the hardest step. At the end of the week, ask, did I follow my rules? Did I wait for confirmation? Did I respect risk? Profit is a byproduct. Discipline is the metric. When discipline becomes the goal, profits follow quietly. Darvas didn't build discipline overnight. He built it deliberately. And so can you. I want you to commit publicly. Which one of these steps do you struggle with most? Comment the step number below. In the final section, we'll bring this journey to a cinematic close and leave you with the truth Darvas lived by. The market never asked you to be brilliant. It asked you to be controlled. And most traders never answer that call. When I look back at Nicolas Darvas' journey, I don't see a man who mastered charts. I see a man who mastered himself. And that distinction matters more than any setup you will ever learn. Darvas didn't win because he was faster. He didn't win because he was smarter. He won because when the moment came to act, he acted exactly as planned. And when the moment didn't come, he did nothing. That restraint is rare. That restraint is powerful. That restraint is the edge. The market will always try to seduce you into motion. It will convince you that action equals opportunity, that intelligence equals advantage, that confidence equals control. But the truth is quieter. Control beats intelligence. Patience beats prediction. Discipline beats emotion. Every time. Darvas understood that trading is not about forcing outcomes. It's about aligning behavior. When behavior is aligned with rules, the market does the rest. Most traders burn out not because they lack knowledge, but because they exhaust themselves fighting uncertainty. Darvas stopped fighting. He waited. He obeyed. He trusted structure over ego. And that trust created consistency. If there is one lesson I want you to carry from this documentary, it is this: your edge is not what you know. Your edge is what you refuse to do. Refuse to chase. Refuse to predict. Refuse to negotiate with rules. The market rewards those who can sit still when everyone else panics and act decisively when conditions are right. That is not intelligence. That is discipline. And discipline, when practiced long enough, becomes identity. I want to hear from you before you leave. What is one rule you will no longer negotiate with after watching this? Write it in the comments. Make it real. If this message resonated with you, not emotionally, but truthfully, then you already understand what Darvas understood. Control is the edge, and now it's your responsibility to use it.